Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I thought I would do somewhat of a overview / commentary video, just to kind of collect my thoughts before beta ends and we go into and BFA goes live. So this will probably be just a shorter video. That's the goal anyway. We'll see what happens. Probably not going to be a lot going on the screen. It's probably going to be more podcast type videos, so you are perfectly perfectly acceptable to minimize me and go do something else. So the first thing I did was I'm going to go over BFA and Shaman to a greater or less extent. Since Shaman was what I have played the most of. I did dungeons first. I did all 3 dungeons. And when I was thinking about it, what I decided was the aesthetics, the visuals look of the dungeons was great. Each one is themed. I think each one was tied to a different zone. They kind of made more sense after I kind of did it backwards because I did the dungeons first, and then I did the the first storyline in each zone. So then once I did that, then the dungeons kind of made more sense. However, that's mostly what I would have done on live anyway. So I digress. They looked great. They were a little they were easier than I would have liked. It seemed like you can go back and watch the videos. We didn't seem to have any trouble on any bosses. Granted, they were only normal. There are 3 modes. There's normal, heroic, and mythic. So I will give them the benefit of the doubt that mythic will be tougher. Somewhat tougher. I'm not saying we have to have, heroic cataclysm dungeons. I just expect some competence from other players. If you're just going in and doing a face roll, then I mean you're still getting a little more experience, and I think you get like a group experience buff now, but it's kind of like, well, what's the point? A little disappointing, I should say. Not what's the point, but just I was a little disappointed. We didn't have any trouble on any of them. I did die once or twice, but that was to my own stupidity, I think, more than anything else. Just kind of, yeah. I drowned once, and because I didn't know where I was going, and things like that. So, I did, as I said, I did the first storyline in each zone. I have no complaints about the zones. I think questing will probably be one of the better parts of the expansion. The questing was really fun, and I don't like questing. That's typically that's kind of how I ended up sort of playing healers, was to avoid, because you could queue in to dungeons faster, and that seemed to be the quicker way to level, and I just didn't really like questing. So my only complaint with that is, again, thinking about it, I had a harder time questing than I did in dungeons, doing dungeons. You can go back and watch the video for Stormsong Valley and Darstvar. And if I pulled 2-3 mobs, my health started to go down. And some of that may be the due to the stats. Squash. Your spells don't work. Don't have as big a bang because the numbers aren't as big, aren't as ridiculous as they were in Legion. However, if you're pulling 2-3 things and you're having trouble staying alive, that I think that could be a problem for some people. A couple of the mobs, I remember the mobs in Darstvar did. They had like a silence effect, which is kind of weird. Other than that, I mean, that's a minor thing. It doesn't deter me. Each zone had its own feel, its own atmosphere, so to speak. The quest lines were really, the intro quest lines were really short. I think Stormsong Valley was the longest. There's no, it's not like Stormhelm, where you're going to have this intro quest that's going to glitch out and then you're going to have to start all over. It's not anything like that. Yeah, I think that the Stormsong was the longest, then the other two took me straight into the zone, and I was able to start questing. So not too bad. If this was, yeah, if we were at an earlier point, I might even have gone back and quested a little more through some of the zones. Trying not to do too much of that since I'm going to turn around and do it again on live, most likely. So, my complaint, if I had any, was with the introduction campaign. It's the same as it was in Legion. You do a little scenario with, X number of people, depending on how many people are queued at that time. The scenario in and of itself was fine. It's just the fact there's an intro scenario. There's a gate. So if I wanted to go play something else, I have to do this scenario first. You can get to both starting zones. You can get to Borlus for the Alliance, and you can get to Zandalar for the Horde. There's boats in, each respective side that will let you do that. However, I don't know that you can do anything once you get here because you haven't completed the scenario. Once you complete the scenario, then you can go do a short quest chain for the Heart of Azeroth. And you need and that's where my second complaint would second and third-ish complaint comes in, is you need to, once you have the Heart of Azeroth, then you can start queuing for dungeons, just normal dungeons. So my second complaint would be that you have to complete the scenario to get the Heart of Azeroth. I tried just going to Silithus, and there's nothing there. There's no NPC. There's nothing there, at least from what I could see, unless I was looking in the wrong spot. I flew around and flew around and flew around. I never saw like a little quest icon on my map or anything like that. So I took that to mean you had to complete the intro campaign first. To get the Heart of Azeroth, it's a really short quest line. You do it in one place. For lack of spoilers, I'll just make it as vague as possible. It's not like an artifact quest chain or anything like that. The other thing is having to do 2 additional things before you can run a normal dungeon, to me is just, personally to me, I find it irritating because I would prefer to do dungeons. As a healer, I'm playing more my healing spec, so to have to change over to a spec to go do something else isn't really what, isn't the first thing I necessarily want to do. And to me, I think it just, gating things like that just, makes people reluctant to, I think, play alts and things like that. You kind of, whatever tune you start with, you're like, oh, well, I don't want to have to go and start over and do all this stuff again. There's a difference between doing the same thing over again and doing the same thing over again and making progress. And I may be splitting hairs there, but this argument has been brought up before with different things. It's about to do both the intro campaign and the Heart of Azeroth, and I've done the campaign on both sides, as Horde and Alliance. It takes about 45 minutes, depending on how quick you do it. There's a certain amount of RP, so it's going to take a little bit of time, regardless of how fast you kill everything. So if I did this on every toon I had, I could easily spend 8 hours doing nothing but the intro campaign, which to me is just ridiculous. Once you've done it once or twice, or once you've done it on both sides, if you have max level characters on both sides, and you've done it on both sides, they need to put in a skip button sooner than within the first patch or 2 of the expansion. I didn't like it when they did it in Legion. I didn't like it when they did it for the Broken Shore, because it was content that I, on my alts anyway, chose to skip. I was like, I'm not doing it again, because I just wanted to unlock. I either wanted to start leveling them in the case of the Legion campaign, or I wanted to start, I wanted to unlock the world quest for the Broken Shore. I was like, I'm not spending an hour or however long the Broken Shore scenario took, 45 minutes, an hour, whatever it was. I'm not taking that time for a chance that I'll be able to go do a world quest. I said, I know in the next patch they'll probably put a skip button. I'll just wait for the skip button. Maybe that makes me a tad bit lazy. I just wasn't going to repeat the same thing. And by that point, you have to remember as well, it's all fine and good when the content is current. After it's been out a while, you don't get as many people signing up for these things, so they take even longer. They don't adjust the scenarios to your party size. As far as I know, you still have to go in and do the same thing with 2-3 people as you have to do with 10 or 15 people, and that is a big difference when it comes to time. And that is my main reason why I don't like it. I don't mind scenarios. I enjoyed them in Mist when they came out, and like I said, the intro campaign scenario to BFA was fine in and of itself. I had no complaints about that. It was just the fact that if I want to do something else on another toon, I have to turn around and spend at least an hour to do something else before I can do what I wanted to do. Well, in an hour, I may not feel like doing it anymore. You know, that's that. Like I said, I think it makes people. I think it's kind of a deterrent to play anything else. I was going to do more on the Horde side. Honestly, that's what stopped me. I was going to run a dungeon on Horde Tune just to see, you know, if there was any difference. And I needed the Heart of Azeroth, so I went to Syllabus. I thought, well, let me see if I can skip doing the campaign and just get the Heart of Azeroth. No, I flew around that zone everywhere, and like I said, I never saw where it let you do it. So I took that to mean you had to do the campaign first. I may be wrong. There's always a chance I missed something. I was somewhat thorough, though. I mean, there was one area that you needed to go to, so it wasn't like you had to find a wandering NPC or anything like that. You went to one area, the guy's just standing there. It should have been fairly easy to find. Yeah, otherwise, once you get past, once you do the intro campaign and you get the Heart of Azeroth, everything else has been fun for the most part. I've enjoyed most of it. So, yeah. So as far as how Shaman played, overall, all the classes have still have their core abilities, their core spec abilities and all that. You're not going to log on and have half your spells gone. You may have to, you may have to do some work with your talents, re-choose your talents. At most, when I've logged on, I've had to re-choose like one tier or something like that, right? And then just kind of move some other ones around because they changed things, but they didn't clear out the tree. They just, whatever I had picked, that's what they left picked. So, and that's, if all you have to do is retweak your talents, then that's not a big deal. Resto played fine. I had no real trouble healing in dungeons. We did get our shield back, so that helped, and we got Unleash Life back. Other than that, no real complaints. Elemental, still the kind of heavy hitter burst damage you would expect. I don't think there was anything of note there. Elemental, I'm sorry, that was enhancement. Not sure if I said elemental or enhancement. Elemental, though, I tried out both in the video for Stormsong Valley, and I did not stay in Elemental very long. It seemed like it just didn't hit very hard. Now, a lot of these, keep in mind with the stats, squash, squish, what have you, you kind of have to get familiar again with how your spells work. Again, the larger numbers aren't there. Elementals always been a little underpowered, I felt like. Once you're geared, once you get a little better gear, it's one of those specs that it works fine. Elemental's been my main shaman's default DPS. And it just didn't seem to be performing as I would have liked. Enhancement did fine. Enhancement, you can see I went in and I was able just to start putting out, a heavier amount of DPS. So, and I was disappointed because Earthquake usually was a bigger hitting spell with this spec, and it just didn't seem to matter what I did. I just couldn't. Even took Ice Fury and Frost Shock, and Flame Shock and Lava Burst is usually a bigger damage dealer, and it just didn't seem like anything I did was making a difference. So was a little disappointed, but it's not a new problem, if we're being honest. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I'll probably still try to play Elemental again. I know enhancements decent, so if I get stuck at any point or anything like that, if I get frustrated or anything, I can switch over. No big deal. I think, as I said, I think being able to pull, and keep in mind I have heal with Healing Surge. I think being able, I was only able to pull like 2-3 mobs, as I said, and my health started to go down, and I even died once or twice. I think that might be a problem for some people. I think some people might find that a little tedious because you do kind of have to pace yourself a little slower. I am in green gear, so I'm only, with dungeons and quest loot and things like that, I'm 207, which is still less than a 920 geared tune from live when I've copied my tunes over that were above 900, or around 920-ish, give or take. They were about 209, I think, 20, give or take around there. So, yeah, it's with green gear, there's always room for improvement usually. I did manage to, and I'm not going to show you because it'd probably be a spoiler, but I did manage to fully unlock the Heart of Azeroth already. So it doesn't take long. I don't know what's going to come after that necessarily. So yeah, I would say as a tip, whatever you do, however you do customize the Heart of Azeroth, it does carry over to all 3 specs. So it's legendary that stays with you through all 3 specs. So just keep that in mind. And I think that's about it. So yeah, the dungeons were good for the most part. Maybe a little easier than I would have liked. The questing was fine. I think the questing's potentially going to be one of the better parts of the expansion. Haven't been able yet to do PvP. I kept queuing for it along with dungeons, and it just never popped. So I'm not sure how that works, but that's not necessarily a BFA, heavily related BFA gameplay. So all the classes, I think I'm really excited that like I said, you're not going to log on the day this goes live and find half your spells gone. You're going to be able to log in and go play. Everything still, even with the stats change, everything still feels the same, still plays the same. They didn't do a lot of changing with how the spells work and the passive abilities and things like that. They made some tweaks and changes here and there, of course. For the most part, though, it's not like I went to use an ability and I was like, oh, that doesn't work the same way anymore, or anything like that. Didn't have any of those experiences, so I think the talents are probably about as best as they've been in this with this current 3 talent per tier system we have. Seems like a lot of work went into the talents this time around. I'm really excited for the PvP talent and war mode. Seems like they simplified this, and with war mode we have it's the new way that you're going to be able to enable world PvP and things like that. However, when this is on, you get to use your PvP abilities as long as you're outside. It turns itself off in instances, of course, as you would expect it would. So dungeons and raids, it will turn itself off, which is fine. So yeah, I'm excited to see what happens when this goes live, and I think that's about it. So my little dark iron dwarf in Borlus, and hope you enjoyed that, and thank you for watching.